Hey guys, Dave here. Welcome to the Centurions Review, the punk rock band of wargame review institutions. This is Molino Del Rey, Gateway to Mexico City from 8th of September 1847. In this review, I'm going to go over the rules and then I'm going to play 2 turns and then Len and I will do our review portion. So this is the normal setup here. The Mexicans have the option of an alternative setup where some of their units they can place in different positions. It goes into more detail on that in the rules. So let's go over the victory conditions. For a major victory, these 2 spaces here, the last 2 units that have passed through there or to be occupying it get a major victory if they're your units. Otherwise, it's a minor, you can get a minor victory, or if you get the most victory points. Victory points are just based on 1 point for each enemy unit you killed and 2 for each unit captured. And that's for the 3-turn game. This is normally a 3-turn game. So the US player has the option during the 3rd turn to extend the game to 8 turns, so it can go all the way to 8. If you do that, there's some additional victory conditions. For victory in the extended battle, you win an epic victory by occupying any of these bastions up here, and you have to trace a unbroken supply route to 1213, that hex there. So that's how you get the super duper epic victory. Let's go over a few nuances of the rules here. Stacking, the limit is 3. If you have more than 3 in a space, you don't lose the unit. It's they're all disrupted. However, in combat, in a single hex, only 1 artillery plus 1 infantry unit can attack from or defend it. A single hex. So, I mean, stacking 2 infantry units together doesn't really do you much good in this. All right, sequence of play. Yeah, first player movement phase. The US player is always the first player. First player combat phase, second player movement, second player combat, and then a turn marker phase. Last thing we'll go over is the CRT, because the CRT is unusual. It uses a differential, and let me explain what some of the things mean. Like DM is a route check. If your morale check fails, the unit routes, which means it has to move 3 away. ARDR is retreat. All units have the choice of either disrupting or retreating 1 to 3 hexes. ACDC, that's a retreat check. If morale check fails, treat as ARDR. If it's passed, apply the parentheses results. And AXDX, retreat or loss. If the morale check is passed, you can take a loss. If it's failed or if passed and player chooses, all units can be disrupted and retreat 1 to 3 hexes. And then exchange. Exchange is the only guaranteed way of killing or causing an enemy unit to lose a step. Each side loses a step, because with AXDX, they can choose to retreat instead of losing a step. And leader result, that just means there's a leader casualty. Roll a die, and a leader's killed on a 5 through 6. MC, that's morale check for a primary unit. So the counters, they have combat strength, morale, and movement, and this 4 in the corner up there, that's the formation number. One thing I forgot to mention, in the extended game, there's 2 additional US units that can be put on the battlefield if the US player decides to do the extended game. Alright, so the US is going to go first. 1, 2, 3, well, no, I'm not going to do that. So rough terrain here actually doesn't affect your movement rate. It just causes effects when you're fighting out of it. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's going to move into there, because these are the 2 spaces they want to take. And we have another one here. 1, 2, 3. Actually, he's going to move to that space so the artillery can fire into there. Actually, the artillery isn't black, line of sight isn't blocked by units, so I can just move this into here. Alright, down here we have 2 cavalry units who are, actually they're not going to charge there because there's a barricade there. So they can go this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they're going to charge there. One thing I forgot to mention is there's march movement in this game, which meaning that if you do your movement and you're never within 2 hexes of a unit, you can do a double move. Alright, so here's the cavalry I just moved. Alright, let's do some combat now. So only 1 unit can defend out of a hex, so defender's got a 3, which is doubled because of the terrain they're on. And then here, the Americans have 6, 12, and this one the leader counts to 18, 20, and then they're going to add their artillery if it's in with that one's within range. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so it's maximum. So let me think for a sec. Just this one's going to fire in there, so it's maximum odds. Alright, so they get a 6, so that's DM, DX. DM means they got to do a morale, so they have a morale of 2, so they have to roll a 1 or 2 to pass. They fail their morale, so they don't want to lose a unit there, so they're going to disrupt instead, because they don't want to lose that space. Alright, this artillery here is going to fire at that artillery. So that's a +2. And he gets a 3. So it does a retreat check. He fails. So he has to disrupt or retreat 1 to 3 hexes. He's going to retreat 1 hex there. And this artillery here is going to fire at that guy. So that's a -1, but he gets a 6. So he has to do a retreat check. And he passes. So he has to retreat or disrupt. He's just going to retreat 1. All right, we're going to do the charge here in lieu of regular combat. So I have to make a morale check for the charging cavalry. So we're going to do the top one first because each charge is individual. Actually, that's how they wanted to go. No, that's can't do that. Or yeah, he can. So like that. So top one, make a morale check, passes. So now the defender has to make a morale check, and he passes. If he would have failed his morale, bad things would have happened. Yeah, if it would have failed, it would have disrupted, meaning that the charge would have been at double points. Alright, so he's charging at a -1. Actually, I didn't realize this was in terrain there. Let's see what that does. Alright, so that doesn't double him. So, -1 at 1, that's AX. So retreat or loss. So he's just going to retreat. He's going to retreat 3. All right, this guy here will do his charge, and he passes his morale. Let's see if they pass their morale. Yes, they do. So he rolls a 3 and a -1. So attack or retreat. So that was a complete waste of time. If they had charged a infantry unit, an infantry unit would have the option of forming a square if they wanted. Alright, so let's go to the Mexican part of the turn. Down here, they're going to charge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, and that one's 6. So that's their charge. And up here, let's see what they can do. This stack's definitely going to move. Or he's got some stuff in there. The artillery can't move. It's immobile. So just the infantry and the officer will move. And they go to there. They have to stay in place because they don't want to lose that. So this guy will go here, and that's their movement. And these three up here are immobile. However, they can still retreat though if they get a retreat result. So let's start here. He's charging this guy. He fails his own morale check while charging, so he becomes disrupted. Alright, so he's going to be... Now I have to roll actually for this guy to see if he passed. He failed, or... Alright, so he's half since he's disrupted, but he's doubled because this guy failed his check. Alright, so that's a 2 to 1, so it's a +1. And roll the 5. So that's DR. So he's going to retreat 1. He's going to go the full 3 back. He negates an enemy zone of control while he's retreating. Most games, if you get anywhere near an enemy zone of control, you lose the unit. But in this game, you don't. Actually, you'll just end up routing. But in this case, this guy negated this zone of control and that zone of control when he moved through. Alright, now this guy... No, he went already, so this guy's got nothing to charge. So this guy will charge here. Rolls his morale, he passes his morale. US morale, they pass. So it's a +1. And they get a 3. So the attacker has to do a retreat check. So actually that was AC, which is retreat check, but the parentheses thing is EX, which is exchange. So since it's passed, it ends up becoming an exchange. So they're both dead because cavalry are only one-step units. Alright, and this guy's got nothing to charge now. Alright, over here. He's not gonna... Let me think here. Yeah, he'll attack. So we have this one here. It's 2 + 5 is 7. And that's 3, which is half, so it's 1. So they're at 8 versus over here, verse 8. So it's attack at 0. And it's defender retreat. Alright, so he retreats to there. Sorry, this gets sticking to the map there. Alright, and over here, they've got 4, 8, versus that 6, so that's a +2. +2 at 4. The defender retreats. They choose to retreat instead of disrupting. And it also said leader, so if they had a leader with bad things, there was a chance the leader could have died. Alright, so that's the end of turn 1. Alright, turn 2. They have to take that space, so they're moving back in there again. Alright, and down here, this guy's going to move away. So he's just going to move there to guard the flank. And at the end of the movement, the disruption is removed. So let's choose what we're going to attack with. So we're attacking them there. So they're half, so they're at 1. So 6, 8, and that. So that will bring them to maximum. They don't need to add anything else to that attack. Or wait, no, it gets they're halved when attacking because that's a bastion. So 8, 14. They'll be 18, and then they'll add this artillery, so 21, so that becomes a 10. So 10-1. So that's the 9 table they're using. And he rolls a 3. So they have to do a morale check. They pass their morale. So they have a defender retreat now since they passed their morale. Problem is, normally when you retreat, you can either retreat or disrupt. He's already disrupted, so he has to retreat now. So the U.S. moves into that space, and they're very happy. All right, and then we got some artillery here. This one's going to fire at that infantry unit. So that's a +1. And he gets a 2. It's attacker retreats, but on bombardment you ignore attacker results. And we have this artillery here. It's going to fire at this right here. Or maybe not. 1, 2, 3. He doesn't have many choices. So, yeah, he will fire at that. So that's a total of 7. So it's on the -4 table. It's attacker retreats, but on bombardment, you don't the attacker doesn't retreat. Down here, the U.S. has no units, so now the Mexicans will do their half of the turn. All right, they're gonna, well, the artillery or cavalry should move too. All right, this guy here at the end of movement removes the disruption marker because he stayed 2 away from the enemy. They went through this here, which is an open ground, so I got to check to see if they can actually do the charge there or it'll just be regular combat. Yeah, I checked the terrain effects chart. This right here is still treated as clear terrain. It's actually a ravine, but it says treat as clear, but no line of sight to or from a non-ravine hex, even if it's adjacent, so that's a legal charge. Alright, so let's do the charge here first. This guy will go first, rolls his morale, and fails, so he's disrupted. Now the Americans have to go. They pass, so it's a 1 versus 1, so that's on a 0 table, because the disruption cut him in half. So 0 and 4. Do a retreat check. He passes. So you apply the parenthesis result, which is exchange, so they both die. Exchange, you don't have an option of like retreating, you just lose a step. Alright, up here, let's do the Mexican combat. 5, 6, 7, 11 to 8 there. That part there, they're attacking across a fence, so they're halved going across. So 7 becomes a 3, plus 4 is 7. 7 versus 8, so they're on the -1 table. So it's attacker retreats. So they'll just move back. Alright, and down here, 8 versus 6. So that's but these guys are in what's considered a town hex there, so they're doubled. So it's 8 versus 12, so that's a -4. Artillery is going to fire in there too. So they're at these are at 8, which becomes half, so that's 4. Plus 3 is 7, so that becomes a +1 versus that. So they rolled a 4. Got to do a morale check. So they passed their morale. So now it's exchange. So each side loses a step. It doesn't say here if it's all units lose a step or what. So actually I checked the rules, it's just a primary unit on each side, but guess... So hold on, it was there. So this is a primary unit. So now he's down to 1 step. And each of these stacks loses a primary, so that's it. Alright, so that's the results of the first 2 turns. So the U.S. have one of the objectives there. They still need to take the second. So during the 3rd turn, they would determine whether they want to extend the game or not. As they have to, the U.S. has to determine at the beginning of movement on the 3rd turn whether they're going to extend. And in this case, they probably would, because there's an equal... Each side has destroyed 2 units, so each side has 2 victory points. So in that case, it would just be a draw, so no one wants to play to a draw. So they would play, they would probably choose an extended game. All right, Len and I will do our review portion now. Hey guys, Dave and Len here. We just played Molino Del Rey, the gateway to Mexico City from 8th of September through 1847. This uses the same core rules as Saalfeld, just has a different scenario rules. I wasn't that big a fan of Saalfeld. It wasn't a bad game, but I wouldn't have called it a good game either. But what did you think of this particular game?
Oh, definitely. I felt it was better than Saalfeld. And
yeah, I would agree with that, actually.
This one had a better combat situation. Because I remember Saalfeld being totally confused half the time on what's going on. Here, at least I played the Mexican player, and at least I had the idea. Defend, hold your line, and don't let the Yankees get past you. So, don't let them capture the causeways, or Mexico City is sunk.
Yeah, the scenario's good. I'm just not a fan of this short... I've never played the regular musket and saber rules. This is like a shortened version of it that they've had for a micro game, but there's things about it. It's not a bad rule set. It's just that I would prefer something different. Here's some of the things I don't like about it. It's a pushing game, and I'm not into pushing games. The only way you can guarantee a step loss in this game is to get an exchange result. If you get like there's no real defender loss result. There's something called DX and AX, which means defender retreats or takes a loss, or attacker retreats or takes a loss, which, if you think about it, it's ridiculous. Let me explain why. You have a battalion, they're being shot at by another enemy battalion. 100 of your guys get shot in the chest, but then your commander says, no, we're going to retreat. So you retreat 100 yards, and then magically all the holes in your guys' chests all heal up. You don't take any losses because the commander decided to retreat. I mean, you don't get to choose whether you're retreating or whether you're getting shot. I mean, that's just ridiculous. The CRT, I don't like. The CRT, there's too many results which require either you or the opponent to make a morale check to determine what happens, which gets tedious after a while. And the scenario's a little short. It's a 3-turn scenario. If you do I guess you would call it the regular battle. If you want to extend the battle, then it becomes an 8-turn scenario. And if you extend the battle, you have the possibility of getting an over... I forget, what did they use as the words for that? Epic victory, whereas in the regular game, which is only 3 turns, you can just get either a minor victory or a major victory. And also in this game, I feel one of the contributing factors for me winning is because I've played this game more than Len has, so I'm more familiar with this unusual rule set, which I think helped with my victory. I don't think that was the only reason, but it was a substantial part of it.
Okay. One thing is, I had a couple of units that had 0 movement points. And if you have 0 movement points, there's got to be a reason. Like if you have an artillery unit, you probably don't have the horses or their emplacements. So you're allowed to retreat. Makes no sense. If you have 0 movement, if you have to retreat, you should be gone.
True, yeah.
Eliminated.
Because the base rule said that if you're retreating... you just move either a certain amount of hexes, and regardless of what your movement you're not expending movement points is what I'm saying here. So yeah, if you have a movement of 0, you can still retreat or route for that matter too.
Yeah, because if you have movement points, you could hitch up the horses to the cannons and pull them out. But if you don't have the horses, you can't pull them out. So you're gone. You should be eliminated if you have to retreat. So that's actually one of my biggest gripes. Even though it's only the Mexican forces that have 0 movement points.
So what do you think of the game overall?
Actually, I played it once, and I saw that the Americans have a tougher situation than I imagined. It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be an easy victory for the Americans. But I found out by putting units in the right place and defending and taking a few step losses instead of retreating, I managed to foil you, and you never even got the Chipotle. Those poor military cadets never had to jump to their deaths.
One thing that helps the Mexicans in this game, since you're trying to take objectives, is if you give them a retreat result, they can either retreat or disrupt. So, which is really annoying because you're trying to push them out of there, and then they just disrupt and they're still there.
Yeah.
But however, if you get a retreat result when you are disrupted, then you do take a. I think is it a step? I forget. Is it a step loss or it's either a step loss or a retreat? I forget. Let me see this over here.
Yeah. I was doing last couple of turns. I was doing a lot of losing a step instead of retreating. Totally frustrating the Yankees' evil plan.
Yeah, so if you're disrupted, you must retreat. If you get a retreat result, you don't get the option to disrupt again because you're already disrupted, so you have to retreat. But my opinion on this game is if this battle interests you, since there's not much stuff out there on the battle, it's probably worth getting. Like I said, I'm not a fan of the base rule set for this, so if you're not interested in the battle and get it, what about you? Would you recommend it to someone? Or?
Yeah, I was about to say, if you're into the Mexican War, you'll probably enjoy it. Because actually, this is more 2 battles. Because the Molino Del Rey historically it was 3 turns. And the Americans won what was considered a fair victory. They took longer and they took more casualties than expected, so they halted. And then the next battle was the Battle of Chipotle. I'm not sure if I'm
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that was the one when the Marines captured it. It opened the gateway to Mexico City. Yes, this is the famous halls of Montezuma.
All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'm not sure what game we're going to review next week, but we'll find something to review. Have a good evening.